stop being limited. It is time to be limitless. And that starts with you, with your breath, with every interaction. Start seeing the light, the joy, the gifts in everything and everyone.
And now a quick word from our sponsors. Thank you so much for your support as it helps keep our content free for everyone. This episode is brought to you by Inside Tracker. Do you want to join me and have more healthy years? Not just a longer life, but the ability to do things you love in your 60s, 70s, 80s, and beyond? Inside Tracker can help you optimize your health span so you live healthier longer. Something, as you know, I'm a huge advocate for. They do this by providing personalized plans based on your body's data. Inside Tracker tests your blood, DNA, and can sync with your fitness tracker. Then provide clear, science-backed recommendations like nutrition, exercise supplement, and lifestyle recommendations. Inside Tracker recently added hormone testing to their plan, which already includes important markers like ApoB, the heart health indicator, vitamin D, magnesium, cortisol, and many more. They cover 47 biomarkers in total. You can also test your DNA and even get your inner age, which is a biological age calculation, along with recommendations on how to lower your inner age. Inside Tracker is offering you, dear audience, a special deal. Get 20% off by going to my link, insidetracker.com/Claudia20 to get the deal. That's insidetracker.com/Claudia20. And now back to the show. My guest today is Noah Aoun, or also known as Pavel Stuchlik, an expert in transformation, self-realization, and harmonious living. I had the pleasure of meeting Pavel at an event recently, which we'll talk about in our interview. And I was so inspired by his work that I had to share with you, dear audience, about it too, because we're all about biohacking and optimization, but there's an important component that we forget about, and we'll talk about that today. Pavel is an international conscious DJ producer, a serial impact seven-figure entrepreneur and investor, certified ambassador of peace, and a Wim Hof instructor. Noah has a unique and diverse set of skills that he brings to his workshops, immersive experiences, retreats, and lectures. His teachings integrate ancient wisdom with modern science and technology to provide simple daily routines that can help you achieve unity, love, and joy in your life. Please enjoy. Welcome to the Longevity and Lifestyle Podcast, Pavel. I'm so excited to have you on today.
Thank you so much. I'm so grateful to have this time with you.
And in context for everyone, Pavel is or Noah, also known as Noah, but he's just finished an 8-hour workshop and he's still come on. So thank you again so much for taking the time to speak despite a very, very full day that you've had. And just for context, people listening, if you hear a little bit of background noises, Pavel's found the quietest space at the hotel he could find. So just bear with us if you hear a few things in the background. So I had the pleasure of meeting Pavel recently at a biohacking conference at an event, actually in the evening. And just to set context of it, during the day at the conference, there were these ecstatic screams almost happening from a bunch of people. When I went over to the balcony and looked down what was going on, you have to imagine a huge bunch of people with headphones on, eye masks, super happy, dancing, all curated and correlated by Pavel. And I was like, wow, this is so exciting. And then in the evening at the event, I was talking to somebody, a professional, and she was saying that this was the most life-changing experience she's ever had. And she was describing it to me as well. And then we had the pleasure of meeting. So all in all, audience, I'm so excited that you get the chance to meet Pavel now. And I'm so excited to have you on. So as a little context about this exciting work that you're doing, and I'd love to start with the topic of hacking longevity through consciousness. So what does this mean, Pavel? And how does it work? What do you do with this?
Let's start with this whole journey through self-transformation that I think everybody's on, and more intensely, especially in these last few years, yes, when health became such a huge topic. Mm-hmm. And so in a simple terms, I've been biohacking for about 7 years. And in this process, I've been learning about myself, and I've spent over $500,000 and this to realize what does that mean to my life. And I was sick, I was depressed, I was unhappy. I had autoimmune issue, chronic fatigue. I literally was sick every 2 weeks. And it's something that actually ended my professional cycling career, which in early phases, I actually raced bikes all over the world. And in this process, so I've literally followed the footsteps of Ben Greenfield, Dave Asprey. I mean, anybody from Dr. Mercola, Dr. Hyman. And I was like, okay, if this is the path, let me take this on. Let me figure out for myself, what can I do? And I spent essentially the last 15 years of traveling the world and learning from some of the most sought out leaders, gurus, healers, I mean, psychics. I literally went on a crazy quest. And in this process, that journey started with the physical body. I hacked my, food sensitivities, my sleep, my nutrition. And then I moved into my mind, where I had all of these limited self-beliefs about myself and about the life I'm living. And, my ego was not working, for me. It was working against me, which a lot of people, find in today's life. And when I start really facing my thoughts, I move into my emotions. So I've noticed on this path that, if we don't face traumas, if we don't face past relationships and hurdles, we can't really experience this deep creativity we are meant to, live, this joy and happy feelings we're meant to have. And so then in that journey, I move into the spirit. So I actually created this thing called me, we, and be. So after all of these things, I've actually simplified biohacking to just dim down version of what aspect of us that we are, living in. Now, the me is the individual consciousness made up of your body, mind, emotions, and spirit. Now, let's talk about spirit, because that was your question, and how I hacked consciousness. So what I've noticed is that I can know every hack in the world. I can follow every science in the world, but it's all subjective to the masses, to the group. And it's also subjective to what the science wants to be showing you. And, 90% of science is made on men. And so what about the women in the world? And so in this process, I spent 1 month with the psychics in Brazil. So I flew myself into Brazilian village where it's all mediums and empaths. And I mean, it's as wildly woo-wee wow as you can imagine.
Where is it in Brazil, out of interest?
It's close to Abadiânia, where Joan of God used to perform his healing. And I've been there as well, but he's got a little bad rep now with the things that came through. But anyways, so I go in there and I know all of these things somewhat already, right? Like what to do to optimize your health. But I was blown away to knowing that there's actually, 5 physical senses that the physical body has. And so, think of the body as the hardware. There is the mind, which is the software. And this is why, we got to reprogram the mind to work for us and to connect and integrate with the physical. But then there is this whole spiritual side of us, which, whatever we call it, psychic senses, spiritual gifts, or inner gifts.
Intuition as well.
Intuition, many different, forms that actually is what we're meant to be listening to. So the psychics told me, leave your 5 senses behind, and we're going to open up your connection to this higher self. So, this has been, overly, I think, named with many different names. But when I say higher self, I'm talking about the original source energy that gave you life at birth, and it will take that life away when we die. Life force, mana, prana, chi, whatever we might call it. Now, this life force communicates with us through 4 senses. Now, there is that psychic hearing, seeing, knowing, and feeling. Now, everybody has this. And this is why I love talking about this in today's world. I have a psychic series coming out as like a interactive learning course, because it's incredible how this information has been taken away from us, to live this limited, fearful life instead of limitless, joyful, loving life. Now, let's talk about the senses a little bit. So first thing first, let's unbuckle the psychic hearing. It's the little whisper that we all have that is always having our back. It has our highest interest. So I'm going to give you a few examples. It's the whisper saying, stop watching Netflix at night. Maybe stop drinking alcohol. Start working out. What is the last time that you took care of yourself and spend time with yourself? So that voice is quite silent, but everybody has it. Now, that voice gets overblown by the ego or the mind, the software we've talked about. Now, in our life, we want to do whatever feels good, right? We tend to, reach for things that are quick results. And
the
so
dopamine
what's
effect.
important, dopamine effect, yes. And to rebuild that, that's a whole nother story.
Neural pathway, yeah.
Now, yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
Now, here's the deal. How we strengthen this muscle is through acknowledgement. So if you hear that voice telling you to stop watching Netflix at night, you first acknowledge it. Thank you. I heard that. And then what you're going to do about that, which is you're going to turn it off and follow that, guidance.
Take action.
Now, the action. Yes. Now, what I've noticed is at first, this was like a concept that I, thought was awesome. And I did know I have this voice. But what happened when I started listening to the voice, it changed my whole life around. Because, just because we know all about biohacking, what's good for our physical body, for instance, it doesn't mean that that's what you need to do at that particular time. So for example, if you're always intermittent fasting and if you always just follow supplements, there's times that you need to weave in and weave out. But how do we tune in to actually hear this divine or higher part of us? It starts with the hearing. Now, everybody has two or three more prominent ones. So some people don't even hear the voice. And this is why it's a good segue to talk about the psychic or inner seeing. Now, this could be a vision projection right inside of your head. This could also be lucid dreaming. This can also be some people really understand their dreams. But let me dim it down to an entrepreneur, for example. Somebody that has a vision to create a new product, new business, new idea that has never been created yet. They see it before it comes. So that's the psychic seeing. And again, we acknowledge it. Thank you. I saw that. Strengthen the muscle and follow that. The third one is the empath's psychic feeling. And it comes from your solar plexus and it extends into your hands. And so this is what's used in Reiki and healing. You're connecting with that feeling part of yourself. And empaths, they usually say something doesn't feel right, or this decision just is not my decision. And I'll give you an example. If you go to a room and there was a fight, somebody really fought hard, then something doesn't feel right, and that's when we're using the psychic feeling. And the final one is the knowing or intuition. This is something that is the hardest one to discern because of the mind, because of the ego can get into the way. And also our, what we actually want to, achieve might not be, exactly what we should be achieving, aligned.
Yeah.
And so that is when you knew that person would cheat on you. You knew that business partner wasn't the right choice. You knew you shouldn't have gone to the party. Now, how you discern this? The easiest way is when you think you don't know. When you know, you don't think. It's because when you start thinking, you go back into that mind.
When you think you don't know, you don't think.
Yes, when you know, you do not think. You don't require thinking.
Okay, so that knowing is when you're not actually thinking, it's just you know it. You haven't thought about it.
First,
know it.
Yes.
Okay, got it.
But when you start thinking about it, that's when you jump back. And this is why it's good. Some people use muscle testing. It's another way to test. But that's just the testing or verifying. Now, if we want to get unlimited information from the source, this is when the life starts really working for us. So to bring it back to longevity, right? Now for me, when I wake up, I ask these senses, is this exercise the right thing to do for me? Should I be meeting, this person? What? And then of course you got to listen to it. You got to follow it, and you got to build the relationship with it as if it's your best friend. And just like a gym, you go to a gym, you build your muscles, and without that time to spend, this is when meditation, breath work, and slowing everything down is a key component, because life is like a piano keynote. We can resonate at the high note. We can also resonate at the low note. And if we think of it as simple as, the good choices and bad choices, or the high choices and low choices, it all comes from somewhere, right? And if we just follow our monkey brain, our mind, then we're limited to what we've learned in the past, projecting into the future. So this is when you can step outside and start recreating a new life that is not based on limited mindset. And this is when life becomes, this massive amount of longevity, because you're either regenerating with your choices, with your actions, with your thoughts, or you're degenerating. And this is when, physical body is just one aspect of you. And so this is why, calling that in to every presence of your life is going to change your life forever.
So exciting to dig in. And I want to hear about some of the transformations that you've seen and also for yourself as well. But before we do, just one really important point with this slowing down and carving out space. We're all so busy. We're all distracted all the time. How do you recommend, or how do you help people? Today, you were saying you did the workshop with all these CEOs, right? Like super busy, running companies, growing businesses, families, whatever other commitments everyone has. What are some of the key practices that have helped you and that you teach and help people to be able to slow down?
Yes. So number one, it all starts with breath. Breath is what you're born with. Breath is what you die with. What you do between first breath and last breath is what determines the quality of your life. So if there's one tool, it starts now. So just observe your breath. There has been scientifically proven that if you do this 5.5 seconds on inhale through your nose, 5.5 seconds on exhale out your nose, first of all, your heart rate variability will go up, your stress will go down, and you're going to be operating in more of that coherent state of being. Mm-hmm. And second of all, so I call this actually the instant presence tools that I like to use all throughout. So it starts with the breath, observing your breath in every situation, while you're listening, while you're driving, whenever you're going, watch it. And if you forget, it's okay. Just come back to it. Don't put any pressure, on that. Mm-hmm. The second part is body awareness. So, ask yourself, where am I? Because most people are in their head, are on their phone, are somewhere outside of their body. And if we live our whole life outside of ourselves, then who are we? Who do we even know what all of these decisions are coming from? We're literally gone. But that's the thing. We're gone all the time. We have been getting lost in Instagram, in emails, in meetings. And so when you bring this breath back, and then when you relax, so the most important part is just staying relaxed and being aware of your whole body. I like to imagine these bubbling champagne bubbles all around yourself. So when you're inhaling, you don't just inhale with your nose, you inhale with your entirety of yourself. That allows you to relax. Yes. So that way, you basically, not in like a real action like this. I would just say, you just imagine it as if you're breathing through every pore of your skin. Mm-hmm. And that way it keeps you in check to stay relaxed. Because what happens is when we give power out to the external, we stop breathing, we shallow breathe, and we tense up. And then we go into fight or flight for no reason. Mm-hmm. And so to keep that outside of the fight or flight, to be in that rest and digest parasympathetic nervous system, it all starts with breath, body awareness. And then here's the third one. Can you pay attention to the silence beneath the noise? Mm-hmm. So let's say that you're in Times Square or Hyde Park for the UK purpose. You are in a busy street, maybe subway. My favorite thing to do, even in the stadiums, for example, is observing the silence underneath the noise. It's this beautiful way to take you back, to stay in that slower vibration. So that way you bring the power back to you. And then every life is not just unfolding around you, but for you. Mm-hmm. So that's one step that I try to take as often as I can throughout the day.
So beautiful. Yeah. This presencing, like the power of now, and just coming back in, coming to the body and through the breath as well. So yeah, thank you for sharing those. Let's talk about some of the transformations. So I love your model. I love the simplicity of it, essentially, but it's just so profoundly powerful. What are some transformations that has happened for you, but then also for people that you've worked with?
I have failed, every relationship. I have failed everything you can possibly imagine. I mean, I went from making millions to literally be homeless and have nothing, be fasting for days and nights because I lost it all through the decisions that I've made. And so in this process, it was brutal. I was playing ping pong. I was playing left and right, good days, bad days, highs and lows. And I had enough. Which, by the way, the meaning of Noah Aeon, it symbolizes duality. Noah means movement. Aeon is all or none. And it symbolizes a way to go back into harmony, go into center, go into that place where you're no longer bounded to duality, where you have these jumps, where you actually face your traumas, face your issues, face your mind, face your health problems, and then move above that, where you live in harmony, health, and happiness. It's the triple H effect that we call, that you receive from, our experiences. Now, we've worked with thousands of people around the world throughout these years, and the amount of effect that we've been able to cultivate is immense, because it's simplicity that needs to come back to a life. People always ask me, what's your best biohack? And I say to unhack everything you've ever known about everything and tune into the source, because then you're truly, spirit hacking, so to speak. Now, in this transformation, I've identified that me, we, and be model. So me is the individual consciousness. We is the collective consciousness, which can be brought into environment and into your relationships. So anything that affects you on the group part. And then B is the supra consciousness. How did we get here? If the universe was created 13.5 billion years ago, what made us come here, right? There's a higher aspect of us. Now we operate on all three levels all the time. And what I've noticed in this process is that there's really just like 4 steps to this transformation. So for me, it was first the awakening. I woke up that my relationships are not working. I woke up that my mind is in a horrible state. My physical body was unhealthy. So I basically took that me, we, be. I broken down my life into these segments. I did a real life assessment. And then first I woke up. So that's the awareness. Simple state is, let's say that you go and take blood work and then you are low on vitamin D, right? Something very simple. That's the wake up phase that you have a data to, start with. The second phase is the cleanup process. This is when you got to let it go. And I was hard with letting things go. I thought that I have to keep it all and also add on. But it is not how it works. I got smacked left and right on every possible way because, I had to let go of old business partners and old friendships and old, thoughts and limited belief system. So it's also easiest way is if you're heavy on environmental toxins, you purge it out, you detox, right? Before you introduce the third phase, which is the power up. So it's a wake up, clean up, power up. And in power up phase, this is when, if you are low on vitamin D, you supplement vitamin D. This is when you bring new relationships, new habits, new thoughts. So then you go through this cycle until you hit the fourth part, which is the rest up and repeat. So in the fourth stage of this journey, you got to unhook from everything. So if you do not unhook at least once a week from your phone, from your computer, from your families and friends, then how do you know who you are, right? We are so obsessed by doing, by constant being busy and busy and busy, that we essentially keep on having these voices telling us, find your passion, find your purpose, do something, different today. But we are not listening. And if we don't listen long enough, cancers, car crashes, this is when dramatic events happen in our life because we have been ignoring this for so long that something's got to come. So in order for us to not get sick, to not get all of these things, this is when, so for me, once a week, I unhook from everything and everyone, turn everything off. And then I go inside into a thinking with vacation, so to speak. So I rethink, reassess, how do I want my life, to be going forward? Then once a month, I take 3 to 4 days completely off to create this bigger block, bigger distance. And once a year, I go and spend 10 days in dark room with no food in the middle of Thailand, where I literally, completely go in and realign my life for going forward. I've now done it 4 times. So
I know. I want to hear all about
days.
this. Yeah, exactly. So let's dig into that in a second. Sorry to interrupt. I just want to say, so it's once a week, you take a day off, or how many hours do you take off?
The full day. So there's no cell phone. There's no computer. And first part of the day, I spend just with myself. The second part of the day, I connect with my kids, my partner, and loved ones. So, it's also, we've got to find the balance, right? How to spend time with them.
Physical, right? So you're not calling anybody. It's like whoever's there.
With them. Yeah. You got it. And also, I spend time with creativity, reading, education, anything that I want to bring back the good food, for the mind, for the emotions, and for the physical.
Yeah.
And then, once a month, it's something a little bit longer. I love going to cabin or unhook somewhere where there's no, access to anything.
Yeah.
And, it's hard at first. It's hard to find this time. But if I don't do it, I forget about who am I. And that's the deep question that many mystics have been questioning for, thousands of years.
Yeah, and the power of what's come from it. And this was our part of our conversation we were having as you were DJing at the same time, which we haven't even gotten to. And you were filling me in on this like mind exploding, amazing things that you're doing. And so I was like, okay, we have to have a deeper conversation about this. And so the third part, so we've got the once a week, which I absolutely love. Some people call it digital detox, but I think you go above and beyond with that reconnecting with self because we're so busy. And, I have a daily meditation practice, but it's short and life is busy. And just having a full day is just phenomenal. So these are my new goals. And then the once a month to find 3 to 4 days at the moment, definitely feeling difficult, but again, something to aim for. And then this once a year. So tell us about this once a year. How did it come to pass of you going to a dark cave in the only drinking water, no food? Where did the original idea come from, or how did it come to pass? And then why have you made this a yearly practice?
It actually came through a Drumville Melchizedek workshop. So I attended this opening illuminated heart workshop about 12 years ago. I mean, very far, ago. Mm-hmm. And essentially what happened was they were talking about all of these concepts and all of these amazing, things in the workshop. But one of the prominent things was this healing with darkroom. How, ancient cultures have been using darkroom, to heal, to also see. I mean, there is I think it's called Kobes in Colombia that actually keep their kids until the age of 20 or 21 in darkroom, just bring them out enough so they don't lose sight. And they call them the people that know, the ones in knowing. It's mind blowing. But what really stood out for me is that there's this amazing lady that's been my mentor that I've had so much work with. Her name is Jas Muhin, and she's from Australia. And she is breatharian. She only is nourished by prana. And at first, I didn't go there because I want to get initiated into this pranic lifestyle, but it happened as a side effect where it took me 2 weeks after the 10 days of not eating before I became hungry again because of the lifestyle that I was living. So mind blowing. And I know what you're thinking. This is out there as far as it gets. And let me tell you, until I had a personal experience to actually really, this is real. This is possible. It's incredible. So you live this lifestyle where you keep your high note really high. And basically you're fasting until you don't reach the full 100% pranic nourishment. So what you're doing, people have to rethink that altogether because we are actually eating when we're there all the time, but a different source of food. And that is the original source, the love, life, chi, mana, many, many mystics call it many different ways, but it is possible. And it starts with, eating less, finding more liquid diet. It starts with removing all of the toxicity and pesticides and MSG out of our diet. So that way you can lighten up enough and live this lifestyle that will make you stop eating so much. So for me now, by the way, I eat about once a day max. And the rest is liquid diet. And again, it takes time to meditate. It's time I live this 8-point lifestyle, no matter where I go. And that really helps me, stay afloat, keep the energy high.
And now a quick word from our sponsors. Thank you so much for your support as it helps keep our content free for everyone. This episode is brought to you by Prolon. If you want the health benefits of fasting, such as healthy aging, weight loss, energy, and mental clarity, while still being able to eat, Prolon's fasting mimicking nutrition products are for you. Prolon is the first and only clinically tested, doctor-recommended fasting nutrition program based on over 20 years of research and developed by the Longevity Institute at the University of Southern California in collaboration with 17 other prestigious universities. I'm a fan of the Prolon 5-day fasting nutrition program. It's primarily primarily plant-based, non-GMO food is shown to rejuvenate your body's cells the same way fasting would. And if done 3 times per year, can reverse your biological age by 2.5 years. Check out Prolon's 5-day fasting nutrition program and subscribe to do the program every 4 months for the best results by going to prolonlife.com. That's PROLONLIFE.com. And for you, dear audience, get 20% off with code Claudia20 at checkout today. And now back to the show.
So I want to touch on a point you were talking about, this is something I've been working on personally as well, like more tapping into intuition, learning to trust it, learning to listen to it as well. And it definitely is a process, especially when we become so rationalized in our mind and we use our mind for everything. And I have some friends that are super attuned that really like hear their intuition, like very loud and clear. And so for some people maybe saying, I'd love to listen to my intuition more, but I don't hear it, or it's not there, or like, I don't think it's there. What are some tools and strategies would you recommend for practicing it? You talked about like acknowledging it, saying thank you, but if someone's like, I'm trying, but I don't hear anything, what are some suggestions you have for people?
So it's all about brainwaves that we're in. So if we look at it from more of the neuroscientific pathway, right? We're either in beta and we're in a high beta, which is that, active brain mind, anxiety, busy, we're always on the edge, right? In this beta frequency. Now, if we're constantly in beta, the doing and having to continue being busy, then we're not going to hear it. So this is when, meditation and specifically breath work really does its work, because it bypasses that monkey brain when you do enough rounds. And, something, by the way, we can give is a on-demand library with this recording. So anybody that wants to, go on this journey will have it at no cost. And essentially, what happens is when you do meditation, right, you kind of first drift into that alpha. So alpha state is a one step closer to God or to universe. And what alpha, can do, that's that creative side of us. This is when we're ready to tackle the world, but not from this busy overdoing, but more from that state of being. Then you've got theta, and this is when it starts getting interested. That's the restorative, subconscious mind, which especially through breath and even longer meditations can be accessed. And here's the thing, when you are in meditation and you're like, am I there yet? Right? We're still in the brain. So this is why it really takes that trigger to get out of that brainwave. And this is also why, there's a lot of tools like Neurovisor, BrainTap. There's a lot of different tools out there you can also use to help you hack that.
Yeah.
Now, when you hit theta, you could have a 10-minute theta experience, and it replaces an hour of sleep. Yoga nidra is something that is been practiced and believed that, 20 minutes of yoga nidra will give you 2 hours of sleep. So this is when you can start accessing this communication. Now, of course, throughout the day, if you're aware of your breath, if you work with the body awareness, you're in a relaxed state, you're going to be much more adherent to hear, and creating space and pauses between meetings, between calls, even just 3 seconds. You inhale for, let's say that's 6, you exhale for 6, you pause, you hold your breath, just anything that will pause your monkey brain and that will bring you back into body. You're going to start having, these senses come through. Now, not everybody can hear. So it's also important to not be hard on yourself, because it might come from the most interesting ways at first. And being aware enough in this process is really the key. And that's why I teach the instant presence so much, because it's the levels of awareness that you bring into every moment. And so, if you've never done a deep breathwork session, do it. I highly advise you, because it is going to, open this thing up. And then constant practice and coming back is also going to do that. So, long story short, I think these are good short tips. And then I think the rest would be that lifestyle, the 8-point lifestyle that, you want to live.
So can you explain the work that you're doing now? You're on high demand, flying around the world, transforming people's lives. But how are you doing that? Can you talk about that?
Yeah. So after those 15 years, I took the tools that actually work and that had a scientific backing behind them. So that way for our analytical mind, we have, both sides. So I think one thing that we found a sweet spot in is that what we're doing is not weird. I mean, it's fun, right? You see people have fun, they scream, they laugh, they dance. And, that's about life. We stopped having fun, and so just to simply don't see this meditation as this deep regimen that I have to do every day. Let it flow. This is when the feminine needs to come through, our life and rebalance that both sides of the masculine and feminine. So we know when to be forcing things and when to be directing things, but we also know when to dance and when to have fun and when to be creative. And so in the work that we do, we have basically kind of like a menu. So there's this system reset tools, which is anything from the breath, dance, meditation. I call it the BDM, and I come from the EDM. And so we were like, how do we, reconfigure this? And I find a secret recipe in this combination. It really works. So you do the deep work, breath work at first. You face all of these emotions and thoughts and people through the work. And then you go and celebrate and dance and manifest just like the ancient tribes. The ancient tribes of Africa, they dance for rain. They dance for food. They dance for a good season of harvesting. And I love that because you literally can manifest through that. And then the meditational part, we ground it back in, we come back to earth because to live a successful life here, it's not about being this high achiever and then have no life. It's about balancing, the spiritual, the physical, the mental, the relational, all of that. So in System Reset, we do immersive experiences anywhere from 1 to 4 hours. And we also do conscious raves where we literally take people on a deep ecstatic dance journey, which we call the XTC, getting ecstatic. Then we also have hybrid breath work, a combination of many different breaths to achieve, mental and emotional resilience. And then we also have something called sensory seduction, where we blindfold people. We do a cooking show. We have like a culinary experience, and people are taking on a new conscious way of, dining. And it goes on with the, immersive stuff. Then we've got our workshop, which is like a full day, something that we did here in Kuala Lumpur today. And then we have retreats. So anything from, 3-day all the way to 10-day retreats. And in those, we combine anything from plant medicine, medical, biohacking retreats that are more based on stem cells, exosomes, ozone, as well as we have the Wim Hof style retreats. It's a cold immersion. We take people through brutal, week of ice. And then finally, we have the System Reset retreat, which is a combination of a little bit of everything.
Which is really phenomenal. So I'm excited to try some of these as well, Pavel. We have to connect when the next ones are. And I need to go on a few more too. So what have been some of the most profound moments for you where you feel like you've had an exponential growth or transformation, like knowing the tools, knowing what you're teaching? I feel like, Joseph Campbell's hero's journey, for me personally, I think my philosophy where I'm getting to is that actually in our lifetime, we go through several cycles of it, because with every new layer or level that we attain, we set then a new belief system, but then we learn more and then we break that system and we go on our path to then learn new insights to then go and teach those as well. So what have been some of those biggest transformations or biggest insights that you've had since being on this transformed path?
Yeah, so I would call those the pivotal moments, right? That kind of like where the transitional. So I think my first pivotal moment was when I was about 17 years old. I wanted to become a professional athlete, but I didn't have the means properly to do it. And my dad literally gave me a choice. You either go to school and your life is paid for, or you do your little cycling thing and you're going to have to figure it out. And so in that process, I actually started my first business and I started trading between Alibaba and eBay. This is before Alibaba was what it is, carbon bike frames. Now in this, I actually became a professional athlete, as well as I used all of the travel to basically sell my carbon frames to all these bike shops. And it led me into this pivotal moment that I got sick. And I basically, instead of recovering after 7-hour bike rides and races, I was on a call with factory and I was building this business and I was like, where's the dropship and where's the shipment? And it grew so much so that I actually collapsed in the Czech national race. So I literally was racing and I woke up in the hospital and my body shut down completely. Chronic fatigue, Epstein-Barr, CMV virus. I literally was like the host of all of these, things because the, immune system was gone from the cycling. And essentially I had to quit. And so I fell into massive depression. I had a huge amount of depression. I had a suicidal thoughts. I mean, I was fried. And it led me to move to America to basically start a new chapter, which was the next, entrepreneur age of myself. And, in a long story short, I ended up finding something called Orange Theory Fitness, which is a high intensity interval training with heart rate monitor. And I was this kid, I was 22 years old, walked in there and I essentially, was asked, within 2 days, if you can figure this out, we're going to give you the state of Georgia rights. And it was their polite way, I think, to, say, fuck off. You're not gonna, do it. And I was able to figure this out. I was able to find the funds, move to Atlanta, and start this business that within 6 months became the fastest growing region in the entire country. And so then I teamed up with the president, with the CEO, and I built locations from New York all the way to Hawaii. And so at the peak, I had about 100 locations under my belt, with massive amount of employees. And that was my second pivotal moment. I was depressed again. I was sick and tired of making, all of these money and all of these things. And it just wasn't, I wanted more. The quest kept on going for what does true meaning of life is. And is this it? Are we supposed to just, hack this game and have all this success and for what? And so during this time, I was drinking a lot. I got into different drugs and I was, living this crazy life, flying private jets and wasting all of my money in this process. And, I did commit myself as an entrepreneur that every 3 months, I'm going to do something ridiculous, something out of comfort zone. And so that's, by the way, what led me to Wim Hof. That's what led me to Darkroom. That's what led me to a samurai camp in Japan. I learned how to be a samurai, as well as it led me to Brazil. And so in this, I walked into the darkroom for the first time. And this is about 7 years ago. This busy entrepreneur that wanted to leave my cell phone behind. And it wasn't until day 7, I lost it. I started crying, and I finally felt myself for who I am, not for who I am not. And for the first time, I had this vision, this calling. And this is when, I didn't hear the voices or anything either until I had this time. And basically the Noah Aeon came about. So I walked out of that, cave or that dark room, and I decided to pretty much, sell all that I had and move into service. I wanted to do something greater for others. Now, a couple of years later, this is when I lost everything. I lost my marriage. I lost all of the money, all of the gain, because I was totally on the opposite spectrum of, this growth. And so what happened was, I thought that the spiritual was the good route, but I didn't realize that there is the physical as well. And that, just because you tell universe you want to be in service, it's going to shave it all off because it's going to make sure it aligns you and it integrates you fully. And so what happened was it took me on this journey through lots of darkness. I, got into really bad, lifestyle. And, I was touring as a DJ and I walked out and I wanted to do this music, but I was in nightclubs, in festivals. And, it brought me really, really dark until I finally, had enough, took charge of my life, and I integrated, my passion, my purpose, and what I call legacy. So my passion is still music, and I keep on creating now, frequency sounds on a modern beat. My purpose is to teach people and workshops how not to go into these extremes. And my legacy is to supporting, helping, and building our conscious driven businesses So that way we have this outlet, this platform that is fully integrated with who I am today.
So beautiful and so touching as well. Thank you for sharing all these details. You mentioned before about biohacking and unhacking, and my people in my audience have heard different biohackers and different hacks people can do. And I really like this concept of unhacking, right? Because we think we have to take the 20 supplements every day. We have to meditate. Like there's certain routines that we have. And yes, routines do make sense. Like you have your routine of once a week, right? Taking your time off. But what are some of the most important things, would you say, to unhack or to break free from?
So there's a great ratio, right, of educating ourselves and like getting the right food to understand ourselves. But the understanding is still limited to our today's science or to whatever we have learned. Now, this is when, the consciousness comes back into the play because, I've literally done everything when it comes to what the biohacking pathway has been taken on us. I've injected every joint with stem cells. I did, all of the eyes, the cold. If you go to my home, the machines, I mean, it's like a biohacking lab.
I've got a few myself, yeah.
And, it's all awesome and it's all great. But if we're not in touch with this higher aspect of us, then I'll tell you what happened. So first thing first, for me, I was overly stressed. So I was doing cold way too much. So it's like a lot of people start doing Wim Hof method and then they do cold all the time, but they don't realize the amount of stressors they were putting on through travel or through meetings, through business. It is not always good to be stressed, but our monkey brain is going to tell us, this is the science. It's good for you, do it every day or whatever. Right. And now again, we're not listening what the body actually needs. And so that would be hack, unhack. So it's a dichotomy, right? That I'm talking about. It's like, yes, you do it. Yes, you find it, but there is a limit to everything that you can take. The next thing was if you have an Epstein-Barr or if you have a chronic fatigue and you put stem cells in your body, it's going to quantify the pathogens and the negative cells as well. So I did this thing for 80 grand, right? To completely change everything. And I've never felt worse. The 3 months after, I had the worst joint pain. I literally did it wrong. And the reason why I'm saying this today is because I don't want you to do the same, whoever's listening, because you've got to ask, you got to build this inner connection with yourself to know, is this good for me? Is this what I require right now? And same goes for supplements. Over supplementing, especially in biohacking, I think is very much happening, and over analyzing even more so. With technology, with reporting, with tracking, we tend to be so obsessed by, Oura Ring and by, all of these devices. But here's the thing, you use it, you learn it, and then you apply it with your divine calling. Is this what I need? Kind of like heart rate monitor, right? If you are in VO2, when you're in endurance, and you use the data to learn about yourself, but then you ask yourself, you will just feel it. So that's a little bit of unhacking.
I really like that too. And it's really tapping into higher states of consciousness, trusting yourself. So that was a big piece for me too. And like my limiting belief systems of like, I had to always learn more, do more, ask more people, like to make sure, double check, triple check, because, how could I know everything? Right. And so just sitting with it again and tapping into trusting oneself, and also like that voice does get louder. So I've thankfully have had that experience over the last years of listening more to intuition and hearing it more often as well. I like what you were saying at the beginning about saying thank you, like being like, okay, thank you for the guidance, thank you for the intuition, and being able to tap into that and trust that as well. So also such an important point, everyone is optimizing. And a lot of the times it's optimizing around us and like our health, but like, how are we optimizing our spiritual practice? How are we optimizing our higher state of self and feeding that and nourishing that and having the time in the calendar, like weekly, to really free up space and to check in. I mean, one of the practices I try to do is once a week, do a 1 hour deep meditation. Now, I've done the TM meditation training, and I've done a bunch of different things, and I have Brain Tap and all these other wonderful devices and things. But I really find that the gold is after those 40 minutes. And that's probably when you start dropping into theta brainwaves. And that 40 minutes to 60 minutes is when you really just feel like a whole energetic shift that comes through as well. So I think having different practices, but I'm going to up my game now after speaking with you, Pavel, and try and do one digital detox day a week and just be super, super present. So thank you for all these beautiful advice and knowledge and insights.
We all have a masculine and feminine part inside of us, right? And so the masculine is telling us more is better, right? Lengthy times. And let me tell you something. It's all patterning and processes that we've been taught, right? That more is better. But, especially with meditation, it's really how quickly you can access that state, because sometimes 5 minutes, can do so much more. And I'll show you one of our short system reset, our meditations is literally 10, 12 minutes. And you can access some of these states, without having to, take forever, right? But what I want to summarize this with, there's this simple, a term. It's the be, do, and have. Now, most people live the opposite. They have to have the right relationships, have the right time, have the right gadgets, have the right partner before they take the right action. And, nowadays we are this a society of doers, right? We became such a crazy doers. And then a lot of people don't ever become that thing, the beingness. Now, if you reverse this, you are what you want to be. You think, you say, and make up the action of that being of what you want to express. Then you do the right things, meaning you take the podcast, the education, you learn about things, or you take the right steps forward. And then you have the results as a natural flow of law of resonance, as a natural flow of your, being, doing, and having. And so it's a paradigm shift that really makes a huge leap in this world.
I love that as well. I heard Terry Crews talk about it once. And I think the book was The Master Key to Riches, where they talk about it as well. Like you need to be in order to do, in order to have. And I love that paradigm shift around it. Because people come and it's when you start acting from a place of scarcity and fear and making decisions from there, like that never ends up in a good place. And this is stuff I do with my discuss with my clients as well. And it's just like tapping into like, what do you love and what do you want to create? And from that level is like, okay, well, what are the actions that I take from there? And not from the like, oh, well, what if they, my boss thinks this, or like I have to do this because I'm worried about doing that. So, well, it's like, no, that's creating from the wrong space. So I love that model. I love the simplicity. I love how you brought it all together, Pavel. So really beautiful. If you could live to 150 years old with excellent health, how would you spend your time?
It's funny. I think I would continue, exploring through these steps that I've described today. And so what I've noticed, I'm not master at anything but the transformation itself. Because the minute we think that we've mastered something, we've lost it all. Because there is this new unlocking potential that we have. Throughout the life, I want to continue exploring this potential on every level of that me, we, be that, I lived through. And I think for me, I've really loved more creation. So creativity is something that has been, really buckled down. And a lot of people don't think they're creative because they don't spend enough time, outside of the doing. But really accessing these states of just, bringing in this new food, this new information, this creation through dance, music, or art. I mean, when we spend time in timelessness, we refuel our emotions. And so, our emotions have been so starved. And so I think having fun and enjoying and traveling and exploring and, building, I think that would be amazing. But again, I think things shift too. Once you get older, you might be interested in other parts. But I do never want to, get stuck in, slowing down when it comes to this creativity.
Well, you're on a very beautiful path and you're growing younger, clearly, with the whole process too. I think it's when you're in this when you do what you love, and you can tell this by people, you have this passion, you have this energy, this youthfulness that just stays forever and ever. So we can tell already you'll be here for a long time. Pavel, what excites you most about the future of health and longevity and well-being over the coming years and beyond?
So, I've been working on this project to basically measure group coherence and brain coherence. And so what excites me is actually something that we're bringing to the market. And essentially, we're creating something like Peloton for your brain. So right now, we were able to figure out a way how to have people in group from anywhere around the world on this little EEG device, this little headband. And we figure out a way that it's 83% accurate, which is actually clinically proven.
Accurate,
and you can be, or accurate, and you could be moving as well, which has not been done before. So what is coming for me is my goal is to bring 1 million people into a coherent state where we can create a quantum leap, a quantum shift as a mankind. So my whole life, everything's been around unity. That's literally the biggest mission I have, is how do we unify the world one person at a time through all of these amazing tools. But now we're going to be able to measure it. So my goal is that we literally create classes. So it's a live, on demand, and courses that you will be able to use with technology. We'll also be able to use it in our events. So when we do retreats, workshops, we'll be able to, show this in real life. But most importantly, we now know, so we're using a lot of the state flow algorithms. We're using the coherence based on Joe Dispenza. And so we're using all of these amazing things to bring people together into, online or in person, and prove and show them in real life, for example, with a trigger of colors or light or sound, how they are hitting the group coherence, not just the person, but group. And so we don't, rise as a civilization until we stop being me. What's in this for me? We got to go into the we, because that's what we're made out of. We didn't come here just for this single drop. We came here to experience all of it.
Oh, super, super exciting. When is that coming about? What's the timeline on that?
So in 3 months, we're going to have the version that will do it not live. So we're going to have an on-demand version where people are able to take classes, whatever it's breath work, meditation, sound healing, dance, all of that with the technology. And then in about 6 to 12 months, we're going to have the live version. We're just working on, we need a lot of servers to be able to, be able to do this, but we have it. We now can do it for, 50 plus people. So in classes, no problem. But online, we are still upgrading the software.
Super, super exciting. So wishing you huge success with that as well. Pavel, for my listeners interested in understanding your work better and what you're up to, where would you direct them to? What websites, or following you on social media? Where can they find out more?
Yeah, so noaaon.com, NOAAON, Noah Official for social media. And then with today, so in the description, we'll send you guys a free on-demand library, as well as, if you want to test out any of these, concepts. So that way, you can feel what we're talking about, not just, hear this.
Yeah, perfect. We'll link everything in the show notes for everyone as well. So yeah, so beautiful. Pavel, do you have a final ask or recommendation or any parting thoughts or message for my audience today?
I'm so grateful for being here. I'm so grateful for you, because I don't think, I always say the work that you're doing to open people up, to education, which creates motivation, which creates inspiration and has these results as a result of it. It is so important. This vortex of new stuff is food that is not media. So kudos to you, and thank you for, opening this. And my biggest thing is, stop being limited. It is time to be limitless. And that starts with you, with your breath, with the power that you can resonate with every interaction. So start seeing the light, the joy, the gifts in everything and everyone.
Bravo. Here's to that. Thank you so much, Pavel, for coming on, sharing your joy, sharing your amazing, amazing story and all the work you're doing. And look really forward to having you on hopefully again to fill us in on what you've been doing over the coming months and looking back at that. So thank you again so much.
Thank you so much.